Good morning and welcome. In preparation for our prelude, you have all been muted. Please enjoy Keith Miller's playing of Search for Peace by McCoy Tyner. Thank you, Keith. The music we just heard was by McCoy Tyner, who was one of the great jazz pianists who brought in new ideas primarily in harmony and rhythm. He is best known for playing in John Coltrane's quartet from 1960 to 1965, but had a long active career from then until shortly before his death. Both of the pieces that you will hear today were recorded in the late 60s. Good morning and welcome to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. We acknowledge that the land on which our church stands is part of the ancestral grounds of the Piscataway people. I am John Barr, one of the worship associates who plans services in collaboration with church staff. I am very happy that you chose to be with us on this first service of the new year. If you are using Zoom this morning, please run your cursor around the perimeter of your screen and find the microphone button, and be sure to remain muted throughout the service so we can hear all of the speakers and the music clearly. While you're moving your cursor around the screen, you may also find the option for switching between gallery view and speaker view. I believe you will want to choose speaker view, as I do. There is also a bubble icon, which will open the chat screen, where you can read timely messages during the service from our Assistant Church Administrator, Phil Brown. Right now, I invite you to type into chat how many people are viewing from your screen. Please type 1 if it's just you. Later in the service, you will be invited to use the chat feature to post your joys and sorrows. At the end of today's service, you will have the option to join a small chat group in a breakout room. And let's see, did you know that Paint Branch has its own YouTube channel? Online services from as far back as April of last year are posted there. Go to YouTube and search for Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church, and you will find it. Thank you.
On this first Sunday of 2021, we breathe a sigh of relief that 2020 is over. In 2020, we lost many people, loved ones, famous people, and far too many strangers whose deaths were part of the growing tally of people who have died from coronavirus. Today, we will consider 4 of these lost lives. However, instead of thinking about these losses with sadness and bitterness, I invite us to think about them in light of our second Unitarian Universalist source, words and deeds of prophetic people which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. The people we will hear of today are some of the visionaries who call us to action, who challenge us to make this a better world. May we each learn something this morning that influences our lives moving forward. Come, worship with us. Now, let us sing hymn number 350. Because this is a less familiar hymn, Deborah Street will sing the first verse for us. Then we will sing all 3 verses together, with our microphones on mute, of course.
The ceaseless flow of endless time, no one can check or stay. We'll view the past with no regret, nor future with dismay. Okay, please all join in. The ceaseless flow of endless time, no one can check or stay. We'll view the past with no regret, nor future with dismay. The present slips into the past, and dream like melts away. The breaking of tomorrow's dawn begins anew today. The past and future ever meet in the eternal now, to make each day a thing complete shall be our New Year vow.
Thank you, Deborah. Please join me in our unison chalice lighting this morning. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos esta cáliz para celebrar el unitarismo universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante. So we're going to talk about who will fill these shoes today. And the filling of shoes is a metaphor that for me harkens back to childhood. A child stands in their parents' shoes declaring, I can wear these. I can be like you. Having someone strive to be like this is a wonderful gift. It brings the comfort of the assurance that our path is possible and valuable. The filling of shoes also acknowledges that there is a role that should be present, a job to be done. Today we greet the new year as a congregation with high hopes for a year better than the one we have just left behind. The wheel of life has rolled and new faces emerge where familiar ones once stood. The worship associates have selected a few of those which we hope you are find familiar and to reflect upon today. Each of these passed away in 2020. We hope you may find inspiration in their deeds and resolve in the knowledge of their passing. In planning this service, we had to select from a large list of people, all inspiring, all worthy in their own way. Some were simply too large a presence. We did not feel we could be adequate to the life's work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg or John Lewis. Rather, we will reflect on smaller pairs of shoes, roles that are no less critical for being less intimidating. I see each of them as teachers. Their lessons are varied, but the message is as at its heart the same. This is a true thing. So I name these people prophets, for they have revealed the truth and shared it in love. And today we offer this challenge. These prophets have finished making their contribution. We have not finished. What shall we do to fill these shoes? Our first reflection is presented by Diana McFadden. Diana, you're muted. Diana, you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you. In terms of shoes to fill, I am very proud and excited to speak about Bill Pelkey. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I'm already encouraged that I think his shoes are starting to be filled already by the growing movement against the death penalty. Bill Pelkey is somebody I had never heard of myself until one of our fellow worship associates compiled a list of people. I chose Bill. I had never heard of him before, but I had certainly heard of the movement that he has started against the death penalty. Bill Pelkey was not himself a UU, but he embodied our UU principles, all of them, I think, directly and indirectly. He strengthened the restorative justice movement through his relentless and increasingly successful struggle to abolish or at least decrease the death penalty. I doubt most people know his name, and this is why I chose Bill. I didn't even know it myself. Also, I was driven by my own revulsion for the death penalty. And I believe it is not only visceral and emotional, but also founded on intellect and science. How many victims has the death penalty really saved? Bill Pelkey died on November 12, 2020, at the age of 73 from a massive heart attack he suffered while shoveling snow. He was gone too soon, and this is all the more reason for us, I believe, to carry his spirit, which we can by our own UU principles. Bill's 30-year career as a steel worker was interrupted for 2 years by a tour of duty with the U.S. Army in Vietnam, from which he received a Purple Heart. Bill's activism against the death penalty began with the murder of his grandmother, Ruth Pelkey, in her own home in Gary, Indiana, in 1985, by a group of juvenile girls led by 15-year-old Paula Cooper during a home robbery. The murder was so brutal that the details are better left unspoken here. Ruth had welcomed the girls into her home when they asked to attend the Bible lesson she taught for decades in her home. After the crime, the girls bragged about their act and they were arrested shortly thereafter. At first, Bill wanted to see Paula Cooper die by the death penalty, as is a common and understandable reaction. But then he experienced a transformation inspired largely by his grandmother herself. He realized she would not have wanted the girl to be executed. He realized the healing power of forgiveness and knowledge. So instead, he proceeded to befriend Paula, the condemned young woman, and he embraced the movement to abolish the death penalty. He became a prominent and ardent opponent of it, leading in several death penalty abolition organizations, including Death Penalty Action and Journey of Hope, which is a group of murder victims' family members who are against the death penalty. I believe Bill embodied all of our UU principles, but I will highlight those he most directly demonstrated. Bill understood the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including that of Paula Cooper, who was spared the death penalty ultimately by Bill's efforts after years on death row. So after serving nearly 30 years in prison, Paula was released and she was able to begin a life and prove to be an excellent employee at the Five Guys Pizza, where the manager there aspired to hire former inmates returning to society. Paula even ascended to a position of manager herself. Sadly, though, long story short, the violence sustained in her own frightful, just horrific childhood, the details of which, some of which I've read, haunted her so much, and she could not bear it any longer, and she did ultimately end her own life. It was just too much to live with. But Paula evolved while she was in prison, and she became an example beyond her crime. Besides earning her GED and other degrees in prison, she became known for her kindness and helping newer inmates to adjust. Bill understood how people can and do become so much more and better than the crimes they committed, including murder, even murder. It is no guarantee that they will evolve, but if they are executed, there is no chance at all. Sparing the condemned from the death penalty is not for sissies. Sadly, even Bill's efforts could not save Orlando Hall, who had been sentenced to death for the horrific murder of Lisa Raine in 1994, when he was about 23 years old. His crime was so monstrous, we must remind ourselves that the death penalty did not save Lisa, and it denies the condemned with their unique and usually horrific life experiences an opportunity to evolve and guide others away from the dark places that only they knew. Like others, Orlando had calmed down as he grew older, and from prison did his best to guide his son into adulthood, teaching him what to avoid, how to do better, from his own experience of how not to be. Orlando was an avid reader and learner, father, grandfather to 13 grandchildren. For years, he corresponded with a friend on the outside, asking her to send him pictures of the flowers in her garden, which he put up in his cell for color. She and Orlando recommended books to one another. She sent Orlando books on his birthday. Yet on November 9th, at 11:47 p.m., Orlando Hall, at age 49, became the 8th federal inmate to be executed per the Trump presidency. Killed was the man he had become, not the drug-dealing monster he had been. With him died all the guidance and lessons he could have taught more to his son and to others in the future. A light from a dark place to show a way out of dark places only he could understand, saving them and so possibly future victims of those who otherwise lacked the vision beyond the nightmares into which they were born. By his example, working with everyone as equals, including condemned inmates and others who had committed violent crimes, Bill practiced justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. Bill's activism calls us to understand, to get to the roots by a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Bill played an unsung role in leading us that much closer towards the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We can debate whether or not it, quote, takes all kinds, but we would do well to learn from all kinds, as did Bill Pelkey. All kinds includes Paula Cooper and Orlando Hall, who evolved to repent, but also a Charles Manson, the hideous, unrepentant, violent madman. He was spared the death penalty because it was suspended in 1972, although he had been sentenced to death, and he died in prison at age 83. Manson never showed remorse for his monstrous crimes, but over the years he made statements implicating the general system as violent and unjust, and the people in his so-called family, he pointed out, were people that, quote, you did not want. This remark sheds light even from Charles Manson. Light can be shed from the darkest places, even if there is no will to help with it. One who has committed repugnant, cruel crime might provide insights from spaces and places we cannot imagine. In order to realize our principle by which we hold respect for the interdependence web of all existence of which we are a part, we must seek to learn more of its parts and strengthen it into one. Bill realized that racism is so deeply embedded in our culture for so long, from the beginning. Most of us, at least nearly all white folks, are still utterly clueless. Although not a UU, Bill seemed to recognize our long overdue eighth principle, declaring that we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. I start to close with a quote from Dr. Ernest Vanden Haag, professor of jurisprudence at Fordham University. He noted that people are punished not for what they will or might do in the future, but for what they did in the past. Bill Pelkey inspires us to question the penal approach and whether it has really helped or harmed society. Opening our minds and hearts to such light, we might finally determine the roots of violence and madness so that we might realize a system of restorative justice, not just punishment. I believe Bill Pelkey is an example of that courageous work against a violent system. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. The first reading is from James 1. Be doers of the word and not merely hearers. Those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. Our second reflection is presented by Polly Pettit.
Larry Kramer was a vocal activist and writer who fought to bring HIV/AIDS to the public consciousness and to give value to the lives of GLBTQ people. Perhaps it's because he was such a force of nature that Larry Kramer stayed alive as long as he did. As a gay man living in New York in 1981, he was alarmed by the mushrooming number of deaths among gay men that was caused by a mysterious, quote, gay cancer. As cases mounted with little public action, he hosted a meeting that would launch the Gay Men's Health Crisis, the first service organization for people living and dying with this new disease, HIV/AIDS. Larry Kramer was angry. A friend would say that his default mode of speech was the primal scream. Hundreds of people were dying, and it seemed that no one was paying attention. Not the government, the healthcare system, not even the media. And it seemed that it was only because the majority of those stricken at that time were gay men. So Kramer took a bullhorn to his call to action. AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, or ACT UP, was launched in 1985. Wall Street, the FDA, the Catholic Church, and Dr. Anthony Fauci were targets of ACT UP's attention-grabbing and incendiary protests. They threw ashes of the dead over the White House wall. They inflated a giant yellow condom over the home of Senator Jesse Helms. They broke into live network news broadcasts. The aim was to shock the country into dealing with AIDS as a public health emergency. It took years for a national health policy to address the epidemic in earnest. President Ronald Reagan did this only in 1987, after nearly 23,000 people had died of the disease. Dr. Fauci said that in American medicine, there are two eras, before Larry and after Larry, crediting Kramer with changing the way that experimental drugs were approved and brought to those who needed them, something that we should remember in this age of COVID-19. Kramer developed the literacy and flair for the dramatic in his professional life. He wrote the screenplay for the film Women in Love, based on the novel by D.H. Lawrence. His play, The Normal Heart, about the love of two men struggling to live at the inception of the AIDS epidemic, won acclaim on Broadway and as a television adaptation. His nonfiction works were criticized for their lack of literary norms and for often being spiteful, crass, and mean-spirited. His earliest writings about AIDS and his plea for gay men to change their personal sexual behavior caused long-lasting rifts in the gay community in New York City. In spite of his figurative bomb throwing, it was said that Larry Kramer was always seeking love. If that meant personally, he seemed to have found it with his husband, with whom he'd lived for over 26 years when he died. He was outrageous because he was outraged that his or any other gay person's love could be an acceptable death sentence by an unaccepting society. I believe that he exemplified the first principle of Unitarian Universalism, the worth and dignity of every human being, in his determination that no one should be stigmatized, especially in the face of a deadly virus. As much as gay relationships were joked about at the White House press conferences when the questions about AIDS were first asked, Kramer demanded that those stricken with AIDS be seen as valued lives to be saved. His actions encompass the wider UU principle of justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. He demanded that the gay community be treated with compassion by doctors, pharmaceutical companies, the media, and the government, instead of being devalued and marginalized. He brought people together with Gay Men's Health Crisis and ACT UP. Those organizations continue to this day. GMHC serves 10,000 people in New York City with comprehensive psychosocial and prevention services. The main character in the play, The Normal Heart, is Ned, speaking in the voice of Larry Kramer himself. In one scene, his straight brother says to him, agreeing that you were born just the same as I was born isn't going to save your dying friends. To which Ned yells back, that is exactly what is going to save my dying friends. Justice, equity, compassion, Larry Kramer demanded them in ways that couldn't be ignored, fortunately for us all. And now Keith Miller and Deborah Street will perform Just the Two of Us by Bill Withers, Ralph McDonald, and William Salter.
Okay. So this was this recording was a big hit about 1980, a collaboration between Bill Withers and the saxophonist Grover Washington. Bill Withers had several popular hits, one of which is in our Teal hymnal, Lean on Me. Anyway, so here is Just the Two of Us.
I see the crystal
Nori Myrdon-Ward, the Youth Worship Associate here at Paint Branch. At age 3, so roughly 11 years ago, my parents and I were watching a show called Mythbusters. An explosion was shown on screen, and my response was, this is a direct quote, "Ooh, fireball." As my family continued to watch the show, my response to the explosions changed to Jamie likes big boom, a quote from one of the earlier seasons. I'm sure you're asking, what does the show Mythbusters have to do with Grant Imahara? Grant was a Mythbuster back when the show was still running. He began showing up part-time, then as a part of the build team, 3 people who helped build everything the hosts needed for the show, and then as a Mythbuster himself. He was, and still is, one of my biggest role models. The Mythbusters cast was made up of Jamie Heineman, Adam Savage, Carrie Byron, Grant Imahara, and Tori Belici. Mythbusters ran for 14 seasons, aka 15 years. The premise of Mythbusters was just that. They tested myths using science, and for many reasons, their tests quite often involved explosions. These myths were everything from will a giant ball of Lego bricks survive rolling down a small hill, to can you build a parachute out of materials in a hotel room, to will cockroaches survive a nuclear blast. Grant Imahara was born in October 1970 in Los Angeles, California. He studied electrical engineering at the University of Southern California and worked for Lucasfilm's Industrial Light and Magic before joining Mythbusters. While at Lucasfilms, Mr. Imahara worked on a significant number of Hollywood movies, including, but not limited to, the Matrix sequels, operating robots in the Star Wars prequels. In fact, was one of only 3 certified R2-D2 drivers. Worked on Terminator 3, The Rise of Machines, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and many others. Imahara also competed in Comedy Central's BattleBots with a robot he himself built, winning several awards. After Mythbusters, he co-hosted The White Rabbit Project, a 1-season show in 2016 with Carrie Byron and Tori Belici. Grant Imahara taught me to embrace the funny side of science. Science doesn't always have to be super serious, that we can take the principles of science and use them for fun and entertainment. He taught me to question and experiment with my world. In fact, my first science fair project involved testing which type of soft drink fast exploded when combined with Mentos, which was a pivot off a Mythbusters episode titled Coke and Mentos. My second science fair experiment was building a small catapult, something I'd watched Grant, Tori, and Carrie do several times in a larger scale, and testing which object flew the furthest based on its mass. Random fun fact, it was a marshmallow. So who says science has to be super serious? Now I'm in honors biology with plans to be a marine biologist. Watching Grant question the world around him inspired me to do so many things. He once said, I liked the challenge of designing and building things, figuring out how something works, how to make it better or apply it in a different way.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Lynn Lewison, and I'm a pastoral care associate here at Paint Branch. Can you see me? Yeah, okay, good. I'm a pastoral care associate here at Paint Branch, along with Kathy Bartolomeo and Jim Flaherty. Our role is to offer presence and support to those in the congregation who may be going through some kind of difficulty. This is a very challenging time for all of us, and I remind you that Reverend Russ is available for pastoral counseling, and we are available to listen and support. Our contact information is in the chat. When we were able to gather at church, the Pastoral Care Associates conducted Joys and Sorrows and collected cards from the congregation during the intonation and read them afterwards. As we gather in community, we carry life's hurts and its great joys. And we think it is still helpful to provide an opportunity for attendees to share these joys and sorrows. So during this online service, I invite you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, and I will lead a meditation after the intonation. And now Keith Miller will play Parasina by McCoy Tyner. Thank you, Keith. Now, let us take a few minutes to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as those joys and sorrows that remain unshared and yet are on our minds. In this quiet time, may our hearts open to hope and healing. May our minds open to hope and possibility. And now may we hold all these and one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead.
Katherine Johnson was a pioneer at NASA, a Black woman computer in the 1950s, beginning in the 1950s, whose role was so important that NASA named a building after her, and Hollywood made a movie about her and her colleagues. If you haven't read the book Hidden Figures or seen the movie, I highly recommend them both. Why did I choose her from the many important Americans who passed away in 2020? Because Katherine Johnson embodies our fourth UU principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and because she helped to pave the way for my life and career. I also majored in math in college and had a career at a federal science agency, and the going was easier for me because of people like her. Katherine Johnson was born in 1918 in West Virginia to uneducated farmers. Her father, who only completed 6th grade himself, valued education for his children so highly that each fall he moved from the farm to a town miles away and worked at a hotel so that all four of his children could eventually graduate from college. At the historically Black West Virginia State College, Katherine majored in French and mathematics, graduating with highest honors at the age of 18. While there, her math professor encouraged her to be a researcher. She was invited to help integrate West Virginia University's graduate program, but only stayed a semester before leaving to start a family with her first husband. Over the next 15 years, she taught math at public school in Virginia and raised 3 daughters. In 1953, Katherine Johnson joined NASA as a computer working in the Flight Research Division. There, she was the only Black member of the staff. But while the men had graduate degrees in math, they had forgotten their geometry, and she remembered hers. She became the first woman in that division to get credit as an author of a research report. A favorite story of hers and NASA's was about her reputation for excellence. In 1962, as NASA prepared for the orbital mission of John Glenn, Katherine Johnson was asked to verify the calculations that had been made by IBM computers before John Glenn was willing to go into space. After retiring from NASA in 1986, she became a public advocate for mathematics education, speaking widely and regularly visiting classrooms to enchant students with the wonders of mathematics and the benefits of pursuing a career in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. Katherine Johnson was a very modest person. She never bragged about what she did. In fact, her own children learned about it from books. Her youngest daughter also said that letters from young children meant more to her than awards. Although Katherine Johnson was Black, living in the South in the 1950s and 60s, she said she didn't feel segregation at NASA. NASA was a very professional organization, Mrs. Johnson told the Observer of Fayetteville, North Carolina in 2010. They didn't have time to be concerned about what color I was. I don't have a feeling of inferiority, Mrs. Johnson said on at least one occasion. Never had. I'm as good as anybody, but no better. This attitude of equality led her to make it possible for women to attend NASA's scientific briefings, formerly closed-door affairs reserved for male staff members. Ceaselessly curious to learn more, when she was told she couldn't attend, she asked, Is there a law against it? Her male colleagues, after some head scratching, concluded that no, there was no law, so they let her in. I take two key lessons from Katherine Johnson's life. The first is for us as learners. Katherine Johnson had some significant advantages, which sounds strange when speaking of Black women born in the South in the first half of the 20th century. She had innate mathematical aptitude. She had parents who valued education and curiosity, and she had a professor who recognized her talent and encouraged her to pursue it. Of course, none of those advantages would have made a difference if she hadn't worked hard and dreamed of using her skills. Our fourth principle is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, but each individual must expend their own effort to pursue it. The second lesson is for us as teachers, and it's about what we can do for other people. We need to seize the opportunity to mentor and encourage wherever we can, and make sure the door is open to all who want to pass through. The law that integrated graduate schools, the law that gave Black women the opportunity to be computers at NASA, Katherine's father, her professor, all played important roles in getting her to a place where her skill could be noticed and meritocracy could take over. In order for others to be able to pursue a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, we should make the path as smooth as possible.
Thank you, Susannah. Our church depends upon the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. This Sunday's offering can be received as indicated in the chat bar. You can make online donations through Breeze or by text, and you can still mail donations to the church office. The offertory music today will be Angel from Montgomery, written by John Prine, one of the most influential singer-songwriters of his generation. Prine was known for songs about love, life, and social change. Angel from Montgomery was first recorded in 1971. The song was about a woman stuck in a loveless marriage, but the song's words within this pandemic time have resonance for many who feel frustrated and trapped and would like to escape, fly away from their current lives.
I am an old woman named after my mother. My old man is another child that's grown old. If dreams were thunder and lightning was desire, this old house would have burnt down a long time ago. Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing that I can hold on to. I believe in this living is just a hard way to go. When I was a young girl, well, I had me a cowboy. He weren't much to look at, just a free rambling man. But that was a long time, and no matter how I tried, those years just blow by like a broken down dam. Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster
And now, may we have faith in life to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we. May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become fields of reality. Please join in singing Fuente de Amor, Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. As I extinguish our chalice, may we embrace the challenge of those who have gone before and find some better shoes to walk in.